Welcome to this first edition of Committee Conversations, where we chat with members about the inner workings of the NJC and their role within it. And I'm joined initially by Tom Stenson. How are we doing, Tom?
I'm very good, thank you, Terry.
Excellent. Well, I'm glad you're well because I want to start off by asking you about your role within the NJC.
Which one?
All of them. Tell me what you do.
All of them. What do I do? Um, so I am head of training for the ADINJC, which revolves around um, trying to keep training courses and standards up for the industry, primarily for our members, but also for the wider audience. So creating training courses, trying to expand our knowledge as instructors. So we get people in from other parts of the industry to talk about their sort of specialties as well. Um, so that's kind of my role as head of training, and then I have recently, last month, stepped into the role as deputy chair of the NJC. So having to step up a little bit and take more responsibility, which is always good.
Just regard to that head of training role, how challenging is that? Because the way you describe that then is you're trying to keep standards up for the members, but also for the industry. So how do you feel the burden of that almost, and how challenging is it?
Yes, it is. Wow, I found it far more challenging than I thought it was going to be, because it's I think, especially with members, they are looking to us to produce quality courses and quality training. And what I don't want it to be, and I think we need to make sure it is for the NJC, is not training based on opinion. This is my opinion of this. I want it to try and be, this is actually fact, this is true, and this is what we should be doing as an industry. There's always going to be parts of opinions that come into any part of training. So I did find it a little bit difficult to start off with on finding the rhythm, but I'm hoping we're kind of moving in the right direction.
It, well, what do you think's missing with the industry training wise? Is there something missing, or do we need a shift in direction, or do you think we're going in the right direction?
Um, I think we're moving in the right direction, but in my opinion, I don't think it's quick enough, and I don't think it's as much of a direction as it should be. I know lots of other industries where the training is what's the word I'm trying to think of? It's known throughout the industry, so this is the standards to aim for, and I feel like we're missing that because we often look at the training or what's set out by DVSA, which we know is kind of the minimum standards. So, there are lots of people within the industry that are trying to push that. And I think it's really important as a national association that we are also trying to keep ahead of the game.
Me putting you on the spot a little bit with this, but I'm going to anyway because I've spoken to Lynn Barry a few times on my podcast, the Instructor podcast, and I've asked her before, is the NJC a training organisation? And her answer's always been no. So is the NJC becoming a training organisation, Tom?
Oh, I can't release those that information. I think you need to define what a training organisation is. We are an association run by ADIs for ADIs, and if it developed into that and that promoted a better industry, I don't see why we wouldn't take that opportunity. But at the same time, we don't want to be known primarily as training because that isn't what the association is about. So it's having those branches but not losing our identity.
So I'm on the committee with you, and I know that the big thing that we do is try and represent our members. So I suppose that would come down to if that's what the members were clamoring for, more training, we're going to provide more training, right?
Yeah, and that's something that we try and listen to with all of our members. Last year, with the courses and workshops that we ran, actually, a lot of the feedback we got were the courses were getting a little bit too big. The amount of delegates on it was a bit too big, and they liked it more personal. So what we did over 2025 so far and what we intend to do for the rest of the year, we've had much smaller groups. We've had slightly variation in the training, and we've given our members free training courses. So we've had these free expert talks where we've got people outside of the industry to come in to talk about their specialties, and these are for members only, or premium members only, to be able to come and get back from us, the association.
I want to touch on your overall. You mentioned very new to the role of deputy chair. So I appreciate you new, but what's some of the additional responsibilities, if you like, that come with this?
I get to choose what we have for tea when we go out of an evening. So I mean, really, it's there to be the backup, so to speak, for Stuart, our chair. So if he's unavailable to perhaps conduct some of the meetings, we've got somebody there to be able to do that. If perhaps somebody approaches us from DVSA, that we have to go to a meeting, that gives, myself, Stuart, or Lynn, who's president, the opportunity to be able to go and represent us as as a association. So I don't see that there's a huge amount different to some of the stuff that I've previously done. It just means that I need to take a bit more notice of what the association does and, make decisions that I think the members are going to want and gain more information from the members. So we are moving in the direction that they're expecting us to be.
How much of your time does this take up?
Um, a lot is probably the easiest thing. The difficulty is it's not like I keep a timesheet. I don't go, wow, I did 2 hours here, I did 2 hours there. Sometimes it can be, I've done probably today 3 or 4 different emails to do with the NJC. And, the other day I was on the phone to somebody about some training, but they wanted advice as well. And then we will potentially have meetings about DVSA, NASP things as well. So I spend quite a lot of time having to deal with this, but I do it because it's for the right reasons. And that was one of the reasons I joined the NJC, is that I'm happy to give back to the industry. I'm happy to put my time in to try and make, the industry a better place.
Yeah, and even recording this, this is for the NJC, so all this stuff adds up. But I don't want to get into this too much, but I think it's worth mentioning at this point that it is non for profit. So
Mm.
there's some stuff, a lot of stuff that you'll do that'll just be voluntary, and there's some stuff that say get paid for. That's not necessarily the right phrase, but you are compensated for your time if you go and deliver training at a local association or something like that. But the bulk of what you do is just voluntary, isn't it?
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and, that again, I use the term putting back into the industry. I've been very lucky with my career over the last 13 years, and I've got a lot of good training, advice, support along that way. And I'd like to be able to put back into it. So there are times where at the end of the week, I think I'm a bit worn out because I've done a lot of free time. But I do think that that's a good thing, because if we're not putting into the industry, all we're doing is taking out of it, and then there's only so much that people can take out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you kind of touched on it a little bit there, but I want to ask a little bit more. So, two questions. When did you first join the NJC, onto the committee, and why? What was your sort of reasoning behind that?
I've been a member for a little while, just after the pandemic, actually, after we came back from the word that we won't talk about. Just after coming back from there, I just offered my services to help out at one of the expos. And I'll be open and honest, I did it because I thought, if I'm going to be there, I might as well go and help out a little bit and go and get to see all this other stuff that happens. So I just offered my free time. And that is really how it started. I did that for a few years, just offering my services to say, look, I'm happy, I'm going to go to these events anyway. Can I help out in any way? And then I was asked to join onto the committee. And you know the process, went for an interview, which is really scary with all these, famous faces, these people I'd heard about. And then, yeah, here we are.
What surprised you, or has anything surprised you since joining?
Oh, that's a good question. Has anything surprised me? Yes, the amount of work the NJC do that people don't realize.
Well,
Yeah.
maybe that ties actually quite nice into the next question because I wanted to ask you what's something that people don't realize, some of the NJC does or what that goes into running the NJC that you wish people knew that they don't.
Um, yeah, I don't want to labor the point. Yes, we do put a lot of time in, but I think one of the common ones that does crop up is we do, I say we, and I'm going to include NASP here, so National Strategic Partnership, which is the MSA and the DIA and us at the NJC. The tireless work that they do with meetings with DVSA to try and improve the whole training process, the qualification process. Um, you know, Lots of us put time and effort in. Lynn has put more hours in that than I think I've slept. And we see a lot of this on social media where the associations don't do anything. And part and parcel of that is people don't know what they don't know. And I think they don't realize how many times we've sat in meetings with DVSA and suggested really good options, and that those options have been disregarded because they've already decided on something. And that is hard work, to say the least. So it would be really nice that people understood more about what we do. But I appreciate that lots of these things as well, we can't talk about until the details are released later on.
I think there's a couple of key points there, and one, I'm always playing devil's advocate slightly with this, so forgive me, but that idea of you putting suggestions forward or maybe challenging what the DVSA is saying and it not coming to fruition, that's something I hear people talk about as well. That idea of associations, they're toothless, as in we've got no say, if you like. It's just a dog that's barking. We don't actually follow it up. How would you respond to that?
I mean, to a certain degree, it's correct, but it's also, I sort of liken it to, for us as road safety, I'm not going to be able to save every single life on the road. I'm not going to convince every single learner that they're going to have to drive safely. But if I can just do one, then those odds are good. So if we don't go to these meetings and we don't attempt to try and do this, we never will make, put our stamp on it. We never will make a change. So we have to keep going to these things because there are times where, they do listen and they're implementing stuff. But I also don't want to be here bashing DVSA. Department of Transport has quite a big say. Government has a big say. It's not so easy just to change things. If we had a magic wand, it would be great. But life is not that easy. So we have to do what we can do and hope for the best.
You have to wonder, like, imagine if those meetings didn't take place, if the DVSA didn't communicate with NASP, what they would actually do. Because even if they're not, like you say, not doing that thing because you've told them not to, they're still going to be tickling their brain potentially, or the individuals at the organization's brain that might stop them doing something else. I often wonder if NASP wasn't there, what where would the industry be now? Do you know what? I'm going to ask you that. Do you reckon? Oh, sorry, I sense where this is going. Do you reckon the industry would be in a better or worse place without NASP?
Um, I'm biased because I fully back NASP and I think it's a great idea. Is it perfect? No, but the world we live in is not perfect. So, yes, I do truly believe that things wouldn't be as good if NASP wasn't doing the work that they did. Could it be better? Yes.
Yeah. But even with that bias, I almost think you're being unfair on yourself by saying that because I would imagine you're more biased because you see what the NJC do,
Mm,
whereas everyone else can't always see that. And you touched on it before that a lot of the time you'll be aware of information or you'll be aware of something that's coming out before it comes out, and you're not allowed to say that.
mm.
Do you think that's a misconception or a problem that people outside looking in have in that they assume you're not doing anything or you don't know stuff because you can't talk about it until DVSA says it?
Yeah, I said it earlier, people don't know what they don't know, and it's easy to look at it from afar. Um, and I always use the analogy of sort of, I'm going to get shouted at now, people watching football. They always sit on the sidelines shouting what you should have done and what could have happened, but they're not on the field running around for 90 minutes. And this is kind of very similar here. A lot of work does go on, and sometimes it's positive, sometimes we don't get the results that we want, but we can't always talk about it because we're told we're not allowed to. And if we do start talking about it, we're then possibly not invited to these things again. And so we've got to sort of toe the line in order to keep the good stuff that we can get from it.
Bringing it back to you and the NJC, what difference long term would you like to make to the NJC?
Oh no, I wish I'd have known this question before. Um, can I cheat and just say a positive one?
Yeah, that'll do. Well, let me put a slightly different questions here then, because it is a slog, and it's a slog in a few different ways. It's a slog in the sense of, as you've just spoke about with the DVSA, we you meet them, you can't talk about the stuff you meet about. They don't always respond to what you want, and then you get the other people outside, as you say, chopping from the sidelines. But it can also be a bit of a slog within the organisation sometimes, to make the changes you might want is difficult and it's a long process. And I think Stuart spoke about it recently that it's lots of different opinions. So it's not always an NJC opinion. It's lots of different opinions within the NJC. So how do you keep motivated in that situation where it does often just feel like a slog in all those different ways?
Because I can see the small changes that do happen, and I think it's really important to look at those because we all want those really big changes, but sometimes you have to just keep taking the steps to get in there. And I can see that we are moving in the right direction, and that's what keeps me motivated. All these kind of negative things that we've touched on here. We've had people say before that lots of the associations are just there to make themselves look good. Committee members are just there for their own egos, and for me, I really couldn't care less. But if I if we can do something positive for road safety, if we can do something positive for our industry, that's worth it. That's worth that time. And you know what? It helps me to sleep at night thinking, do you know what? We've done good.
I think you've kind of touched on it there, but I'm going to ask directly for this because one of the things you mentioned a couple of times is heading in the right direction. What's the right direction?
Ah, is this magic wand time or is this actually real life?
Let's either you can even go big like scenario, what's dream scenario, or you can go what's realistic. I'll give you the choice, or both.
Okay, so magic wand time would be zero deaths on the road, and we've had a positive impact towards that, and that we have put a structure in place that 95% of people agree with on a good qualification process for instructors, and that at the end of it, they're not only instructors, but they are coaches, mentors, teachers. They're all the above, but they're also road safety professionals because I think that's something that lacks for us. So that's my magic wand. It's perfect. It's lovely. We've had a really positive impact, zero deaths, and the qualification process for instructors is instead of minimum standards, it's well above.
I don't view that as a magic wand. That's the goal for me. Even just when it
Yeah.
comes to instructors and road safety, you look at the concept of Vision Zero. We're aiming for that for 2050. So Is it easy? Definitely not. Is it
No.
doable? I think it's doable. It's just, maybe not in our lifetime,
Well,
fortunately.
yeah, but that's what I mean by the right direction. It
Yeah,
might not be the likes of you and me who get to see that, but if we don't keep the ball rolling, it won't get there.
I love that. All right, is there anything else that you want to touch on regarding the NJC? Any message you'd like to get out to people, or do you think we've covered what we need to cover?
If you're not a member, come and check us out. Come to the expos, come to the conferences. Give us feedback on what people want more or less from us because we're there for our members and, for the greater good of the industry.
Awesome. Well, it's been a pleasure doing this first committee conversation with you, Tom. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.